Yo,
Hey y'all, happy Friday.
happy Friday.
Friday, love fest.
Happy Friday.
Right? So, last month we talked about weak language, and we had this, 4 video long series. And this month we decided to talk about abusive behavior. Because I think a lot of times, or both think, a lot of times we exhibit behavior that we call something other than abuse when it actually is abusive. So we wanted to be helpful to everybody and help you all pinpoint and identify behaviors that are common but are not healthy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to use the word normal. They are common. Right. They commonly occur in relationships, romantic, familiar, whatever kind of relationship, but they're not healthy.
Right.
And
also, help you recognize them, but not, beat yourself up, right? We want you to start to become aware so that we can catch ourselves and shift our behavior and learn ways to maybe... word we're using a lot is disengage in the moment that we recognize maybe what we're doing is not super loving. It might be manipulative and abusive.
Yeah.
So we're going to try and give you some tools.
Yeah. So the first one that we wanted to talk to you guys about is grooming people. The way that we groom, the object of the person that we're relating to by misrepresenting ourselves, by sending our representatives.
Which we all love to talk about, right?
Right.
That's a real trendy way to talk about relationships. We're are they sending their representative early in the relationship? And we think that's normalized, right? And what we're saying is that if you recognize you're sending a representative, stop.
Yeah. But it's interesting because people have these 90-day rules. They have all these things of a certain number of dates before they get serious in a relationship, because we all just accept that everyone's going to kind of misrepresent who they are in the beginning. So I need to, date this person long enough or get to know this person long enough that they can't, that they can't misrepresent.
So I see their
themselves
true
anymore.
Colors, see who they really are.
Exactly.
But what we're saying is, even in your outwardly abusive relationships, when you have an outward abuser, an intentional abuser, those relationships often don't start with abuse. They start really rosy and beautiful.
Yes.
And what's happening is they are grooming you. They're grooming you to trust them. They're grooming you to believe that they're going to love you better than anybody else could ever love you. They're essentially sending a representative. And so unintentionally, we often send a representative, and we've normalized that in even conversation that's that's normal, it happens. It's a honeymoon stage. That's what you do.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is that you are actually abusing somebody because you're not sending your true self, which gives them the right to choose, gives the relationship a chance to be built on solid ground versus quicksand.
Right.
And if you know you're doing that, if you know maybe you're going out of your way more than you will the rest of your relationship, or you're buying flowers all the time, but you really don't mean to keep that up, or
you're not being impeccable about your intentions and what you like and what you dislike. You're going along with things,
sacrificing something that you actually do care about because it's easier, and you don't want them to be mad or leave you or lose the relationship, or if they think I don't like that, maybe they won't like me.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
If that's all it takes, then maybe they shouldn't like you.
Right. Even not being vulnerable. That's been my experience, is that I've actually had guys tell me that they couldn't tell me something that was them actually being vulnerable because it was too early. It's I can't tell you that because then I guess I would have a weakened opinion of them. I would think, oh, they're too,
soft.
Emotional, too soft. And I was just that makes no sense. Be honest with me.
Right.
And I will be honest with you back.
Facts.
But there's lots of different ways that we kind of portray ourselves as something other than what we really are. We portray our feelings as something other than what they are. For better or worse, whatever that might be. Whether we think it's because we really like this person and we don't want to mess things up, that's still you misrepresenting who you are. Or if we have more devious intentions, I know that if they knew this about me, they wouldn't, they would disengage. So I can't tell them that because I don't want them to disengage.
That's
well, why
abusive.
not? That's abusive. You are taking away their
Right to choose.
right to make an informed decision about whether or not they want to continue to talk to you or be your friend or be more than a friend.
Right. Totally agree.
You know, like that's where we're going with it. I'm sure everybody, like, in the comments, feel free to sound off on like examples of ways that we all misrepresent ourselves. And again, this isn't just in romantic relationships. This is, you know, how we misrepresent ourselves with friends. This is how we misrepresent ourselves
At work.
And you know, like, to be clear, I think our audience is pretty mature, so you guys get where we're coming from. But to be clear, we're not talking about, you know, like, go on your first date and say, yeah, I'm a slob and you know, like, we're not saying that. But we're also, you know, talking about just being impeccable and being honest and being courageous enough to be vulnerable about who you really are.
Right. And to I think the big takeaway here is that we all have done things in relationships that to an extreme would be abuse, right? And we wouldn't call them that because we're not intentional about it or it's not extreme, but they border on abusive behavior because we are taking away people's right to choose or their informed decision making. And instead of kind of what we want to do is kind of be bold, and instead of tiptoeing around like, oh, they just sent their representative, it's no big deal, we want to say, like, no, that is the beginning of an abusive behavior. So let's, like, become more aware of that, check it, pull it back, and learn the skills to be impeccable so we don't develop manipulative behaviors inside a relationship. Because they create trauma, which hurts relationships down the road.
Right. And along the same lines of, like, that grooming that we do is, like, I've also seen people who are, like, really, like, aggressive or rude or just, like, brash and really blunt from the beginning. And it's almost like they're grooming people to just accept whatever abuse is gonna come, like, that we don't call abuse. But it's just kind of like, this is just how I am, like, I'm just
abrupt, I'm direct, I'm forward,
I'm just
whatever.
Brutally honest. And it's like, but
are you mean? It's hard to tell.
You know, like, that is another way that we groom each other. You know, like, we groom people, and people do respond to that kind of abuse favorably sometimes.
They kind of like it, right?
They're like, oh, okay, well, at least I know what I'm dealing with. But that person is like, yeah, but we could still know what we're dealing with without being mean. We could still know what we're dealing with without you being brutally honest and saying things that embarrass or humiliate people or make them feel bad. Like, we can still know who you are. You can still, you know, be very direct about who you are, and unapologetic about who you are without being, you know, a jerk.
Or putting yourself in a superior situation to your partner, whoever you're relating with, which is going to be like the common theme of all these videos, that abusive behavior is intended to put you in a superior position to whoever it is you're relating with on purpose. Right? It's
so that you can control and manipulate them. Exactly.
And think about, like, a sibling with their finger in your face. I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you, I'm not touching you. There's nothing they're doing that's wrong, except they're intentionally invading your space with the intent to drive you crazy. And that's abusive, right? And be clear, that is a violent behavior, right? And so then when I retaliate as little sister by snatching up your finger and twisting it until you cry, and then I get in trouble for being violent, I'm like, hey, you were violent first because you antagonized me to do that. So as abusers, we want to think about that, like, and I say as abusers because I would include myself in that. I've done things behavior. that
even to retaliate, that's still abusive.
And as abusers, the more aware we are of our behavior leading to a position of superiority in my relationship as the intention, I need to check that. I need to say, why do I want to be superior here? Why do I think that it's okay to treat this person that way? Why would I talk to them that way?
How do I not feel superior already in my life?
How
do I feel inferior?
Right, and what don't we want equity between me and them?
All right, y'all, that's video 1. We teach love. See y'all next week.